¿Ya allá atrás? Ok, ya se arrancamos. Bueno, gracias una vez más por la invitación.
Hello and thanks once again for this invitation. It's my 9th year. I suppose that next year there won't be a speech, or a talk. It will be a celebration with a rock band or something. So this year will be a bit different from the others. My presentation will vary, and I'm a bit nervous about it because during the second part of the presentation, we are going to try to develop a GenXus application in 2030, and some of the things will be done live, and I'm praying to heavens that everything goes right. So I would like to start with this statement from Einstein, who was, in my opinion, a great philosopher and not only a great scientist. The big problems we face cannot be solved using the same level of thought that created those problems in the first place. In other words, we have to evolve all the time, and the fact that we created a company once based on the needs of the time does not mean that things won't change throughout time and that we won't need new techniques to solve those problems. This will become more evident throughout the presentation. So what are we going to talk about today? The development of software yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and beyond. And I would like you to think that today we are going to take a break from all of the decades during which we have developing software and think instead, how did we get here? That's why I would like to go to the past, because the reason of being of GenX and Java and Linux and programming language are related to a duality, two important matters: entropy or complexity and intelligence, and this constant struggle between both of them. We create new tools in order to face new complexities. I would like to start with what I call GenXus version 0. This man here, José Marie Jacquard, some of you may know him, was, in my opinion, the person who put the seed that led to computing as we know it. He didn't do it because he was a philosopher and thought, well, one day we're going to need computers. It was just because of a business need of his time. In the 19th century, at the beginning, there was a growing industry of looms. There were machines that made fabrics or cloths, but they were extremely complex and they could not be programmed. They could make only one pattern, and the pattern was very simple. Lines, for example, and for the Uruguayan flag, it would be just the blue and the white. But what about something more complex? And he thought, what if I could create a machine that I could program to make different patterns? And that would be GenXus.0. It was the first machine to create patterns, and he used cards similar to the ones you knew at the time of the mainframes. 3 decades later, he inspired these two people here on the screen. Those are the only two real photos I found of them. Ida Lovelace and Charles Babbage, who created the analytical engine. It was considered at the time the first machine that was truly and universally programmable. It received an algorithm and generated a response. The interesting thing about this machine is that these people were very bright, but the machines were relatively simple. There was therefore a great disparity between the complexity of the software and the know-how required to manipulate the software. On the screen, you see on the left-hand side the cards that Jacquard used for his machines. for his looms and the patterns, and on the right hand side a program written by Lovelace that calculated a sequence. These machines were programmed in the hardware. There was no concept of software. The hardware was the software. Each machine was programmable for a certain objective, but then it did only that. So on the right hand side you see how Ada was establishing that she was going to put the transistor here and connect a wire there, and it didn't change much during 1 century. The ENIAC was a computer that took more or less a space like this scenario, could also be programmable universally, but all of the circuits and the wires had to be connected, and it also used cards to give instructions. And this takes me to the following remark. Historical levels have changed in abstraction. At the beginning, it was all about the hardware and logical circuits. The hardware was the software. It was necessary to have a mathematician who knew what he was doing, but the programs were very simple. Then we went to machine language and assembly language. And thirdly, someone said, complexity is increasing. I need to simplify things. And that led to languages such as BASIC and Pascal, etc., to face the new complexities. But someone else later said, I have like 40 languages, and the era of the multi-platforms arrived. And there are virtual machines with Java and Linux and Xcode, etc., depending on what you want to program. And as Jennifer Lopez would say, what's next? What's the next big trend? When is it coming? And all of the questions have the same answer. Now, let me look at this from a different angle. The solutions that we make with the software are also becoming more complex. So not only the tools, but also the software. So we went from 0001 plus 0010 is equal to, in binary figures, to calculate the Fourier transform, and from saying use this pattern in this loom for this fabric to calculate the optimal route between these airports, and then from calculating the interest of this loan to predicting the ups and downs of the stock exchange in Nasdaq. And we went from sell this product to suggest a person to buy this product based on his personality in the social networks. So things increase in complexity. Then this gives a series of tools that are also becoming more complicated. For example, in the platforms, we go from mainframe to desktop to server to mobile to the cloud to Java, etc. Also, the programming languages go from systems to legacy, web, mobile, etc. So if you want to program an iPhone, for example, you have native applications such as Swift, and also the databases have become more complex. We came from those that are simple or relational to no-sol, in-memory, distributed, etc. The architectures also have grown in complexity, from monolithic to multi-level to serverless, and sometimes you need a CDN, performance, etc. And we create new tools like GitHub, Docker, Jenkins, IPFS, etc. And the environments also have evolved in order to accompany this complexity. Visual Studio, Xcode, and I had a screen that I'm not going to show that had a list of 30 IDs. And finally, the trends are more and more complex and abstract: artificial intelligence, blockchain, big data, etc. All of this can be summarized with a few images, an analogy of how an entrepreneur that is starting an enterprise tries to figure out where the company is going. And it would be like a router that has 8 ports and different wires with different colors. The company grows and you have something like this. And people say, well, I know this. It's very neat. Like they say in South America, I have all my divisions organized. But the point comes when the owner of the company says, it's becoming too complex and I know where I'm going. I have a clear vision. In your mind, you imagine something like this: a set of servers with all the wires perfectly organized. But what happens, and I've seen it with my own eyes, and I know that you have too, what happens is basically this. Why? Why does it happen? Well, in this case in particular, there is a new server technology. You have Linux, for example, and someone says, I don't have the budget to buy a good one. I buy the cheapest one, and now I have a new department in charge of social networks, and this is how things end. And this is the reality for a lot of companies nowadays, even if they say the opposite. I don't say that they look like this, they look worse. The creator of C++ language said, I always wished my PC to be as easy to use as my phone. And he was talking at the time about his little phone. But now my desire, my wish has come true because I don't understand how to use my phone anymore. So the more functionalities things have, the more complex they become. I drew this graph, which is the core of this presentation, and here I explain everything I would like to say. On the one hand side, in blue, we have the level of expertise of the person that will determine the solution versus the complexity of the code. If you look on the right hand side, the figure 75 represents Ada Lovelace, who was an intelligent woman with a lot of knowledge. But finally, what they were doing was very simple. The software was just a sequence. It was the equivalent of a software of 20, 30 code lines in the present time. And then the computers became more powerful and more simple in the use, and the complexity increased, and here we arrived at a point which is the golden age in the 70s, the 80s, and the beginning of the current century. And anyone could program, even someone who never attended school. And I have friends who can do it. They take a programming book and they understand and they start making codes. There was a lot of demand for professionals and there was balance because people were learning. That's why I wrote that Unix versus Windows. In reality, the main reason why Microsoft won so much market share was because it was simple. They made things easy, and those in charge of the technology felt safe because they understood what they were doing. When I was very young, it was necessary to hire someone. But then with the mouse would just go click, click, and things worked. With Unix, maybe it was not so safe, but you felt that you wouldn't do your job because you adopted Windows. And if someone got fired, it was easy to replace this person. That is why Microsoft won the war, and won the war in the development of software with tools such as Visual Basic, which made things easy. As Nicola said, the power of doing simple things or making things simple. But what happens now? Firstly, the first warning is that software is becoming more and more and more complex, and the complexity is increasing in an exponential manner. There's no person right now who can understand clearly what machine learning is or how a blockchain operates. But then the mind of the human being intellectually goes only so far. We can sum up to a certain figure, and we can recite poems up to a certain limit, but the machines don't have that limitation. They can go much farther, and that's a big problem we have. This question mark, this space that is being created. There's a great disparity between what we can control with the tools we have and the complexity that is getting out of our hands, out of control. And the big question is how, with which tool can we take all this into account? How do we address that? Once again, the question can be solved with what I'm going to show you right now, which is the second part of what I said before. Or rather, no, the other way around. It's the first part of something I'm going to say later. Our capacity of generating software efficiently will depend directly on our capacity of addressing entropy. That is to say, complexity. And I'll tell you how we can address complexity. So what is the solution in the short term? I say the circle and the wheel give us a hint. Imagine the first human beings who started creating technology and needed to make a perfect circle. How could they do it without a pre-existing machine that drew circles? Well, you can have a piece of leather and you can draw a circle on the floor using a vertical piece of wood, and then you can build a wheel or build something to cut trees. And that has always been the mantra in the world of software. For example, in the 50s or 60s, someone said, this code is being written too many times. Why don't I do the subroutine? I don't know whether you use the go-to, which brings something backwards. And then someone said, why don't I have libraries and put things outside of the code? And someone then said, why don't I synthesize all this in objects, one for maths, another one for network connections, etc. And again, the next question is, and what's next? So what's coming in the short term? Firstly, the IDEs and projects that are completely located in the cloud. That is to say, develop anywhere. You will be able to work in any place. Then an environment of cooperation in real time. And this helps a lot because you are interacting with all of the community who is working with that software, whether it's chatting, voice, video, etc. Then an integrated debugger and distributed in a transparent manner, including multi-server environments, which are a big headache. Then the control of integrated and wholly transparent versions, something similar to Time Machine. That's a technology through which if I erase a file, I can find through a calendar on time the place in the past where I created that file. And this has been an extraordinary feature. Then the extensive use of APIs in order to connect to services of third parties. Right now, people talk a lot about machine learning as a service, MLAAS. So if you need the capacity to detect faces, we can outsource this to Amazon through an API. We send the data, for example. and also preferably serverless architectures, and eventually consistency, as Gaston said, in order to scale all this massively. Another thing which is very important is the apps everywhere and totally invisible. In other words, our apps are not going to be only in the smartwatch or the iPhone. I come home and I can talk to my TV or to my home, or I talk to my car, or I can talk to the store and the store recognizes me and we can chat. And then one click to publish to production, to publish your application online. One click publishing. And then I don't know how many of you have seen an Amazon tool called Cloud9. It's fully located in your servers, and I'll show you a short video so that you see how it operates. You see here two screens. The woman is going to stand up and start working, and you'll see how both of them can work at the same time.
And giving me full access to his environment so we can pair program together and review code. Great, so I'll go ahead and get in my environment. Okay, I'm logged in. So what you're seeing now is my screen is on the left-hand side with my blue theme, and Anker's is on the right-hand side in the light theme. You can see our initials on the upper right corner of the screen, which means we're both online in this environment. We can also hover over each other's cursor and see what code we're looking at. Anker and I use this a lot to program. So I can go in and highlight some lines on the screen, and then they show up on Anker's screen in purple.
Pero bueno, hasta ahí era que quería llegar.
The important thing is that the environment is the web. The only bad thing, and I'm not laughing at Amazon, is that Amazon is the more complex and complicated platform to use that I've seen in my life. Even for the most basic things, you have to touch a lot of things, but they have started to understand it and doing things such as this one in order to address this complexity, which is a barrier for many people who would like to adopt the services. So again, what will happen after tomorrow? How do we address this complexity, this entropy? And here comes the second part of the statement I showed you before. Our capacity to address entropy efficiently will depend directly on our capacity of using artificial intelligence. That is the key for us to address from now on that chasm that we have seen in the graph between what we can intellectually do with our classical tools and the complexity that is coming and that is growing exponentially. And I'm going to talk about this Yahoo versus Google, which I talked about 7 years ago. It's good for the young people to understand that there was a time when Yahoo was the titan in the world, whereas Google was a small company with 3 guys working from a basement. But why did Google almost destroy Yahoo? Well, because Yahoo bet on people, whereas Google bet on algorithms. That is to say, artificial intelligence. That formula you see there is literally Google's algorithm. That formula was what allowed Google to defeat Yahoo in 3 years, because Yahoo had about 10,000 people and then many more whose job was to surf the internet, see what had been sent to certain people and say, oh, this page goes to economy and finance, and they did it manually. Whereas Google said, well, this is going to explode in a few years. How many people will we need to do this job and do it well? So they created this algorithm which establishes the degree of, how do you say it, importance that a link has from one page to several pages, etc. And that is why they won vis-a-vis Yahoo. So what will come the day after tomorrow? Firstly, and this is similar to what a company does, and it starts with G and it's not Google, descriptive application based on intelligent patterns. Secondly, bots or agents of artificial intelligence for all the software testing. Thirdly, automated detection of patterns using machine learning or deep learning. Fourth, generation of fully automated patterns. Then, fifth, deep analysis of all of the data that arrives to the company, whereas my machine learning, deep learning, big data, or any way in which the data arrive. And finally, assistance or attendance for the development and continuity of the software, development of artificial intelligence. Now, during the last 50 years, I think that most of us have used tools whose only job is to give you the software as a package for you to run. Let us use an example from Microsoft. This to you that can be run by a client without any problem. And I'm not going to use Visual Studio to continue working on that application unless there is a bot or an improvement that is going to be paid for me to do it. And that has to change because due to artificial intelligence, the way in which you're going to produce software requires an intelligence of the building, of the business and what we're doing. And that same intelligence should be used to make a feedback loop which feeds on itself and which tells you as the program runs, well, you can improve this or that. And we'll see it in a moment in the demo. So what I'm going to show you today in practice is an application operating in the future. But let us go back to my presentation in 2012. There was a next segment in which I said, let's see what a day would be like in a few years. For example, an autonomous car that would pick me up and take me to the airport. Many laugh, but there are cities where this already exists. And in 2020 in Japan, they intend to have a whole fleet of autonomous intelligent cars for the tourists. But then, coming back to my talk, I said that there should be an ID in the cloud, and you could be on a plane and be able to work. And that is a reality, is no longer science fiction. But what I'm going to show you goes one step beyond this. It's something that is in the cloud and helps me generate software. And if I go back to 2011, for the first time I talk here of the concept of invisible software. And I said that the time was coming, and that was 7 years ago, of going from the manual users interfaces to the disinterfaces of users, that is to say the lack of interface, an intelligence that detects what I want to do. The example I gave at the time in that speech was that you go home and, well, normally you would take out the key and open the door. But when you go to the supermarket, instead, there is a sensor and you just go in because the door opens. And this is how things should be. Now, here I make a parenthesis. And this is the best example I've seen this year. I'm going to show you a photo of what I think is the best product, the most important IT product this year. And most of you probably are not going to be able to guess what's on the screen. But the second place is for the Apple Watch, and it's a possibility to do the echocardiogram. But this has nothing to do with Apple, a microwave oven. And I'm sure that Nicholas knows exactly what I'm talking about.
This is a product that Amazon has just announced. It announced it in its line, Amazon Basics. Now, what's interesting about this, and I'm saying this isn't a joke, I mean, I really think that this is the most significant product this year, because when you go to a place which is not your home, and you're faced with a microwave oven, and you close the door, and you are faced with all these buttons, what do you think? Okay, it's a number. Is it a number? Is it now that's to make pizza or to heat it or you know? Okay, this microwave oven is connected to the internet and has Alexa integrated, and so I take up my food and I said, please heat this dish. And that's it. Or you know, popcorn or whatever. And the second wonderful thing, and this isn't a joke, is that it detects the I don't know, the barcode of the popcorns, because it knows how many you have eaten. It orders popcorns automatically to Amazon. Just think of the power of all that. I can assure you that that microwave is something that you can, you know, this is what Amazon really takes along. You know that Amazon bought a whole supermarket chain, and you can say, well, what for? Okay, now it's obvious what for. Combine that with this, and it's 1 + 1. It's 2, because now you can be sure that we're going to see fridges by Amazon, where you would put in the food, and it would tell you, Alexa would tell you, you know, your food is about to expire, or a certain thing is about to expire, and you should cook it, and you've got a recipe, and you know, I've got a new product. Would you like to try it? Do you understand? That's where we are moving to. And that can be applied to a washing machine, to buying shoes, to stores. I think that Amazon will become an Apple thanks to Alexa and to this type of things. Now, having said this, before my demo, I would like to show you this picture. This picture came down to us thanks to Isaac Asimov, famous writer and futurologist. He did that, and this is the only copy available. There are many postcards like this made by someone called Jean-Marc Gaultier in 1899, and I think it was a cigarette company said, I would like you to draw some postcards to be included in our products called In the Year 2000. Please imagine the year 2000. And I took this example because it's the one I like the most. And he thought that in the year 2000, thanks to electricity, at that time they were not talking about electronics, it was going to be possible to modulate your voice, send it to your home, so that someone, in this case your wife, on the other side, on the other end, could communicate. What's that today? It's a video conference. That's what it is. And why I am saying this? Well, because what I'm showing you, perhaps is not going to target exactly, but the important thing is the concept that I want you to grasp. This man, what he's talking about is video conferencing. Perhaps he didn't have the capacity, or he couldn't see what there was everything in the market, but well, he imagined it. And the other thing I want to say, since I've been here for such a long time, this is not a system that's in production. It's not even there. It's in beta, right? And it's not even in alpha. It's not a pilot. It's not even a prototype. It's what I call duct tape ware. What does it mean? Well, I paid for a couple of these programs. I spent the whole afternoon working. I put duct tape everywhere. So if something fails, I would take my computer and restart. Let's see. How would it be a Genexus app in 2030? That's what I've chosen simply because it looked fine. But I think that what I'm going to explain is going to happen much earlier. But people think linear, and I have to work with, how to say, with perceptions, because what I'm going to show you, it's going to be much more wonderful than virtual reality. But I want you to grasp the concept, and that's why I'm going to have a voice assistant of AI, where I literally will develop a whole global multinational app and show it today. It's not a joke. This is true. Now, the first thing I started thinking about was, well, I've got to give a name to this digital assistant. And I decided it was going to be a woman. And what name could I use to call this virtual assistant? And when I saw Nexus, only one word, one name that comes up is this one, Genesis. And so my virtual assistant is going to be Genexus. Give me a second so I can coordinate my cell phone, and I'll launch Genexus. All right, deep breath. There we go. There you are. Hello, Genesis. Welcome back, José Elías. I'm Genesis 1.0 and I'm ready to assist you. At present, there are no pending matters or warnings generated. How can I help you today? So Genesis automatically, magically, or automagically, as I like to say, with my Face ID, recognized it was me. I didn't have to put any credentials to get into the system. So first of all, Genix, please say hello to the people around me. Hello, everyone. I hope I can impress you with my skills. José Elías, I'm ready to work. Shall we continue? All right, let's see what happens.
Vamos a generar.
Let's generate a new app with the template, with the standard template. Excellent. For what industry and sector? For retail, for global retail. Would it be a local or an international platform? An international platform with headquarters in the US and branches in all countries, physically and virtually. What types of products will be sold in this platform? It's not going to have any meaning what I'm going to say, but I'm going to explain it to you afterwards. Genexus for electronic products similar to the products that Best Buy sells in the US. For what type of devices and platforms shall I generate this app? Generate it for mobile, including iPads, web, wearables, and also generate an API for third parties. What is the nature of integration with third parties with this API? What's the online? What's caliber? What you call it? Generate API for Mercado Libre, but another one using standard API of Genexus. Okay. What are the properties that you want in this app? Okay, let's make it a little bit difficult. Okay, I would like you to use the virtual assistant Watson from IBM, and you also use blockchain of SAP Leonardo. The sales mode has not been specified. Would it be a person, a line, or both? in online or both? Genex is both, but please allow people buying online to pick up their products in local stores. Okay, would you like to continue using DHL for your international orders or local suppliers for orders in a country? Yes, except for the US, where I would also like to use DHL for local orders. Okay. You've told me that you would like to use the standard model, but in similar previous projects to this one, I've seen that you have done some outsourcing of the personalized graphic interface. Would you like me to do the same this time? Yes. Please use the same designer of Caterpillar. Okay. Is this platform going to be free of charge, or will it require some membership, or is it just one single payment? Genex is, it's going to be free of charge to have access to the list of products, but to become a member is going to be free to buy products. All right, everything is ready to generate the first pilot of this app. Generating. Complete app. The skeleton of the app has been completed and is ready to be tested. Okay. Now, let's going to ask her to show us the skeleton of the app. Yeah, it has some sense of humor, right? Now, at this point in time, I want you to imagine that we are creating the app, there are screens and so on, and please test that app with Genexus. Genesis, please deploy the app among all Genexus employees and keep me abreast of any progress. Shall I implement security measures with digital certificates right now, or shall I wait for a future beta stage? Oh, it's paying attention to all details. Well, implement all security measures. Cancel. Implement all security measures right now. I don't know why I say please. So the application has been displayed, and some days later, let's see what Genesis tells me about that test with Genexus employees. All right, let's continue. The results of the first alpha test are available for your revision. Here they are. Well, according to this, and see how easy, there is a rating from 4 to 5 stars. 76 people tried out our Genexus. 238 comments were made, and Genexus automatically, from what I can see, have chosen 2 main problem patterns that were generated. Let's see what it says. Please explain to me the 2 largest problems that you've encountered in this app, or that were encountered. Number 1 was that the graph design is very generic, and number 2, they wish to pay with bitcoins. I thought we had hired a graphic designer. Genexus, have you contacted a graphic designer? Is he working in the project? Yes, but the work won't be ready until next week. Okay, please keep me informed about everything that's happening and implement payment with bitcoins as an optional payment mean. Okay, generating. Ready? Payment with bitcoins has been implemented. If it was as easy as this, right, at present. I don't know if there is any other comment that you'd like to make, Genexus? Due to the use pattern of this app, I suggest testing with Amazon Turk at larger scale to measure the behavior of the app with users from various countries. Can I proceed to personalize the app with for each local market? Wow, whenever I see this, I'm surprised. I don't even know what to say. Let me ask her something difficult. Okay. Go ahead. But I would also like you to add the functionality of, according to the number of articles that customers buy, they would accumulate points that they can use to buy other products. Do you wish to use a standard algorithm or a detector of patterns with machine learning, or do you wish to codify the algorithm yourself? Please use Gaston's algorithm. Using Gaston's algorithm by default, generating, ready. Okay, I'm going to make it a little bit more difficult now. Let me see. Hold on a minute. Okay, let me think about it now. Wait a second. Wait a sec. Let me see here. There is something that I also wanted her to do, and I've forgotten about it. Okay. Cancel. Okay, Genexis, I want you to implement something that, depending on the purchase track record of our customers, you suggest products. Would you like assistance using standard patterns, or do you wish to implement the rule yourself or to allocate it to another developer? Well, yesterday Nicolas said that algorithms are already replacing many things, and so he's got more free time. So allocate this task to Nicolas and tell me how it moves, how it progresses. The skeleton of this rule is ready on the list of functions to implement by Nicolas. When it's implemented, we'll test it automatically, and I will warn you about it. All right. Several days later, I will be talking to Genexis and fine-tuning the app, and let's see what happens after that. The application is considered able to come to production. Internal users have qualified it, have rated 9.17, externals 8.75, and no important anomalies have been detected. All the agreements with suppliers have been digitally signed, and the chain of supply payments, delivery, and support are ready to start. Well, I've got many agreements with companies. On the basis of that, of those agreements, Genexis has the companies that will provide me with those products ready. He has the whole payment means. We're going to use credit cards, Bitcoins, PayPal, and so on. All the delivery system has already been set out with DHL, and the technical support, perhaps a call center in Mexico or with Watson AI that makes you think he is a human being. So she's doing lots of things for me. So please display the app as 1.0. Upload in production, ready. The app can already be used publicly. Excellent. Let's see what happens now. 6 weeks later, the application is in production, and Genexis is constantly monitoring not only was this a tool for implementation, but it's monitoring. We charge, and we charge clients. You like that, right? And we charge clients for that. So let's see if Genexis can make any observations about what's happening. I've detected an opportunity to improve sales. I've seen that sales in the US are, in general, done in from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. I think that we should create an a campaign, an advertising campaign in social networks, personalized to each prospect, announcing products according to the purchase record. Shall I go on? Shall I proceed? And you're probably going to say, this can't be possible. Well, you can do it. With deep learning, that's quite easy. If you have a lot of data, when there is a spike, what does AI do? And say, oh, something happened here, let me look at it. And when it looks at it, it can see that there was an increase in the purchase pattern. And from there onwards, there is a sales app And the main objective is to increase sales. And so this should trigger an alarm. In past applications, I've seen this, and they've made an advertising campaign. So let me suggest that as well. So 2 weeks later, I said, yes, go on, do it. And I hope it's 1 or 2% increase in sales. The advertising campaign that was started 2 weeks ago has given excellent results. Sales increased by 5% in the time frame of the campaign. Well, I said I've given a couple of sentences to an AI, and my sales increased by 5%. You know, I was in my rocking chair talking with my AI. Obviously, if I'm the manager of this company and I'm told that my sales increased by 5%, well, the only thing it occurs to me to tell Genexes is this: Genexes, I love you. Will you marry me? Genexes, will you marry me? Genexes? I'm sorry, José Elías, but you're not my type. Why don't you think about what to give me as a present with some bitcoins?
Gracias, Génesis.
Thank you, Genexes. You are shaming in front of everyone, even those watching us in the internet. Okay, goodbye. Well, that's incredible. That's simply an overview of what's coming. Now, I would like you to come back and to make a few observations of what I've made and what really happened in my conversation. Now, several things about what we've just seen. The first thing is that Genexes recognized me automatically. He knows the circle I belong to and the privileges I have to do things or not. For instance, it recognized that Gaston and Nicolas are in my working team. The other thing is that it's absolutely in the cloud, so I don't have to have a laptop with me anywhere. I can have access to Genexes. I can go on working. The other thing is that it recognizes the patterns of apps, so I don't have to be very explicit, given lots of details. I don't have to be verbal. This means that Genexes never heard me saying, I want a column saying price and the subtotal. Well, no, that's why it's never asked me, because it thought that that was the way I liked it, unless I said, please stop and add this. The other thing is that it understands natural language, including idiosyncrasies, pauses, repetition, my mistakes, or natural spontaneous expressions. The other thing is that it understands the context. Depending on what I'm saying, the same sentence may understand it differently, as it happens with us. That's normal. The other thing is that it recognizes pattern rules for development, and it knows what you need to complete a full graphic. This type of system has a customer face, and so it said for tablets, let's have a graphic designer. And since I didn't tell her to do it, she reminded me of it. She also knows how to integrate with third parties in an integrated manner with SAP, or with Watson, IBM Watson, or Mercado Libre. The other thing, and this is quite implicit, perhaps you haven't noted in the app, but let's think that if Genexes lives in the cloud, and I'm doing this app, and thousands of people in the world, this means that Genexes can learn from patterns from all the industry. And the next time I'm going to build an app with Genexes, it's going to have not only my own knowledge, but the collective knowledge of all of you, except for things that are propriety owned of a company. The other thing is that Genexes keeps you up to date with everything that's happening in a natural way. You don't have to give me a 30-page Excel report. Show me what's happening. Don't give me 300 comments. Give me an excerpt. What does it happen? There are two important things that you have to pay attention to. That's what I'm interested in. Now, the other thing is it suggests things that I've probably forgotten based on past experience, my own experience and Genex's experience, for instance, suggesting the use of Amazon Turk. Now, leaders are very good, but not many people working in companies, perhaps mainly those who are at the end of the line. For instance, Genexis knows that in this type of app that we generated, it was increasing sales, the important thing. It may happen that another app would be to position my brand better, or to entertain more if it's a game, or to have a list for future sales, or, as I said, to reduce distribution costs. So whenever it detects a pattern, she compares it and says, what's the objective of this system? Is it to increase sales or to reduce costs or customer engagement or whatever? The other thing is that it monitors automatically and proactively this app without any human intervention. It releases me from that work, and so Genexis is not only useful in the development stage. And the other very clear thing is that it's got a very good sense of humor, and if you want to make her love you, tell her or talk to her in Bitcoins. Now, a question. What we've just seen, is it science fiction? How long would it take to see it? Well, when I was developing this app, that is 12 days ago, two pieces of news called my attention. The first one is that it was on the 13th of September 2018, 12 days ago. Microsoft decided to acquire a startup law which says that anyone with zero technological knowledge or zero AI knowledge can create AI models, or it can read your handwriting. Now, the same day, curiously enough, Facebook launched two tools, sorry. One is called SapFix, nothing to do with SAP, and the other one is called Sapiens. They detect bugs, problems, and the other one suggests how to solve them automatically. But this is not regression testing. While they are developing, they create routines. Now, this is that the program is automatically detecting bugs and fixes them. And this is what happened yesterday while Nicolas was giving his keynote speech. Adobe, Microsoft, and SAP, they launched the Open Data Initiative. The idea behind this is that, as I said at the beginning when I talked about Best Buy, she asked me what kind of products you want to sell, and I said those that Best Buy sells. Now, this initiative tries to standardize the language, the APIs in the world of business or whatever. Genexis could easily connect to Best Buy, download a sample of products, and realize that all the products that it sells are TVs, laptops, cell phones, computers, and to find out what providers, depending on my previous criteria, the ones given the best prices or the policy or tax included or the automatic delivery center. And something else that caught my attention is that these three people, they are very much connected to what Nicolas said. They are competitors. These are companies that in a certain environment, they are really killing one another because of customers. Solutions in the cloud are competitors and so on. But if I look at the three of them, apparently it's as if they were going to a bachelor's farewell party. So to conclude, and this is my conclusion today, to deal with the entropy that is coming unavoidably, I may add, we need to give way to the artificial intelligence, and the only Titanic future that is not adopting this will be this: sinking. I didn't want to finish my talk with this screen, such a sad and so low, really. They're 3.8 kilometers down. And so I decided to invite someone to help me to close. This is Chuck Norris. You all know him. And I'm going to tell you 3 things about about Chuck Norris that perhaps you didn't know. The first one is that Chuck Norris doesn't write codes. It's too macho to write that. The second thing that you know about Chuck Norris is that Chuck Norris tells the code, write yourself. And the third thing is that, ladies and gentlemen, Chuck Norris uses Gen X's. Thank you all.